Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic and educational episode of the Red Peace Machine. We're going to have some upcoming news for you soon. We think about the podcast. We're really excited, and today we are going to talk about Texas government and the quorum, etc. But I'd like to just check in real quick about with Afghanistan. We need to acknowledge that what's going on there too before we move on. So, and I think Roy had mentioned earlier that he had an update on the EU that has to do with Afghanistan. So maybe we can roll that all up together after we see how everybody's doing.
Roll it over to Roy.
I'm good. We just did a wedding, and it was lovely.
Your wedding?
No, we've been married enough times. It was a friend's wedding.
It was a friend's wedding, and it was a really huge space with just under 20 people.
Yeah.
Oh,
So it felt,
Great.
felt kind of safe, and a lot of the time was outside. So
yeah,
it was
It was an outdoor wedding.
that makes a difference.
it felt okay, and nobody. I think Roy attacked. He was one of the best men, so he attacked the groom. Was like with a big bear hug at the end.
Nice.
He just couldn't sustain. But
You did it.
yeah.
Now, how about you, Benefsha? How are you?
Yeah, doing good. It felt good to be dancing. I danced a lot last night. It felt so good. Oh God, it felt really good.
That's fantastic.
I'm feeling happy, really tired, but doing good.
And it wasn't too hot last night. Last night it really cooled down.
Yeah.
I mean, we were outside too. So, what about you, Ramesh? What's going on?
Doing good, doing well. Ran into too many spider webs yesterday at the place where I usually jog. They like accumulate on a daily basis, and it's apparently my mission to run through all of them.
That is some kind of metaphor right there. I got to think about that.
Get back to me on that, Susie. Tell me how to interpret this.
So wait a minute. So on the running trail?
Yeah, so like it's in the woods and whatnot, right? So there'll be spider webs here and there, but like it's a dozen daily, a dozen that I'll run into.
That's really weird because here in Austin, if you run through a web enough times, the spider will just move their web.
That's what I thought, right? Like maybe
spiders aren't as smart as Austin.
Well, they're trying to catch
they
bigger.
They didn't go to UT.
They're going to blend. You have I went to Rise. I know these people who always talk about how they went to Rise and Rise and Rise and Rise and Rise. And I was like, wasn't it free when you went? Because they're like 70. Oh yeah, it was actually free to go to Rise.
Really
I didn't know that.
And almost anybody could get in if you lived in the city.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, back in the 60s. Yeah, anybody could get in. It was And so when they talk, and now it's like really, and now, but I'm thinking, anybody could get into that. I'm sorry.
Well, we went to U of H, both of us.
That's different.
And then you too.
So we did both.
Very nice. I went to North Texas and I studied at Harvard, which simply means I read a book while I was sitting at Harvard.
Oh, you're good. That's good.
Okay, so all right. So what's going on with Afghanistan, Roy?
Well, the evacuations are a complete shit show. It looks like, from the looks of it, that NATO and the United States had no clue what was going to happen, even though for 20 years I've been saying exactly what was going to happen. Although I will say, in their defense, I didn't think it would happen 16 days before they pulled out. I thought it would happen 16 days after they pulled out. So it's about a month off. But surely they should have been evacuating people way before August, right? I mean, this is the whole idea that we're going to evacuate tens of thousands of people
by May.
in August. Well, let's just put it off until the absolute last minute is ridiculous. And now I know the UK is asking for an extension on the United States' withdrawal. I don't know if anybody else is as well. But one of the things that we know is going to come out of this is a refugee crisis.
God.
And Pakistan can only absorb so many. And let's face it, most people don't want to end up in Pakistan or India. So they're going to aim for Europe. And that means going through Iran. And Trump's sanctions have absolutely crippled the Iranian economy. So that'll destabilize Iran with its tiny resources. And of course, their goal is to go then to Turkey to get to Greece. And Greece has announced it just completed its wall.
Yeah.
So for all you Europeans out there who think that Trump sucked, I want you to remember you do too.
Yeah, that's right.
Wall. That's real mature. Remember the Berlin Wall or all the walls in Northern Ireland to keep the Protestants and the Catholics?
Oh, those. And that's what Trump actually said, is that Northern Ireland needed to build a wall. What a fucking moron. So in the evacuation, do you think we're going to get our translators out, or do you think that we will just abandon them entirely? Because that's my feeling.
Well, I mean, we basically announced we're going to abandon whole segments of the collaborators who worked with us. So, for example, the commandos, they've been told, you guys are just screwed. And the commandos were Afghanistan's elite forces that basically, they were the only combat force that functioned in Afghanistan that wasn't, part of the NATO army.
Right.
What I'm hoping for is that what the French did is what the Taliban do. So when the Nazis were thrown out of France, the French shaved the collaborators. I think that's really sweet because, right, first of all, they're not dead. And I think that's always a good thing. And then the next step is you get to delete the shame over time because your hair grows back. And
wow.
Yeah, I think what the French did was really classy. And I'm just hoping the Taliban do that to our collaborators.
And what do you think really about that? Do you think that's, I mean, okay, because we used to work with the fucking Taliban.
I mean, yeah, in the 80s and the 90s. So if my country was invaded by a foreign country, I would have the intense urge to kill the collaborators. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy about France's solution is like if the Taliban would take that as they've said that's what they're going to do, but
yeah, well, exactly. the promises, but I have seen female news anchors back on, and they're wearing the hijab, but they're not completely covered. So I find that very interesting. And the woman on the ground there, the one reporter who's there, and she's a woman and she's seeing what's happening. And Trump's attacked her and for wearing the garb that the Taliban has told her to wear, or she was going to be whatevered, I mean, that's the Taliban has said, this is how we do it now. You need to be covered. We can see your whatever. And so she wore it. That's, she's giving her newscast wearing this. And Donald Trump, and I think Ted Cruz also came out and said, I can't believe that you would deign to do what they told you to do. What a horrible thing that is. Now, a man would never be put in that position. First of all, nobody's going to tell him what to wear. So a male reporter would be a whole different story. But the fact that she's being attacked by our own people while she's down there risking her life being shot at.
This is not this is not an Afghan. This is a U.S.
This is a U.S. reporter on the ground, the only one left, and it's a woman.
Right.
And for some reason, we just, the Q party seems to think it's fine to attack her. So and okay, so moving on from Afghanistan, we've got a real problem here in Texas.
Is it Clarissa Ward?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I
She's
mean, it's really crazy because what are these gutless cowards doing?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like,
exactly.
are you in Afghanistan reporting? Shut up.
Nope, nope. And I mean, it's that whole layer, that extra layer of danger because she's a woman, you know. I think that's a legitimate fear to have on top of all of that. That I mean, and I don't know why I'm making this point, but that a man wouldn't have. And I guess maybe I'm making the point because men are attacking her for
Yeah.
wearing. I'm like, why are you being such assholes? You're so lucky she's there.
Mm.
I mean,
Ugh,
and what brave thing have they ever done?
nothing.
Nothing.
Well, they incited a riot.
And then hid in the
But
basement
even
underneath the White House and drank champagne.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And cheered it on with
Cheered it
Kimberly
on.
Guilfoyle. Okay, so Texas, someone broke quorum. Who was it? Where are the two that took off that are supposed to be vacationing somewhere in Panama or something? Did you hear about that? Two of
No.
them are missing. And they think they took a vacation to like, so they left DC.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they went to I think they went south, like to Panama or something like that. They just decided to go on vacation.
Nobody knows. Like, don't they have to?
They couldn't find
Are there
them
timesheets
yesterday.
involved? Like, what's happening?
You would timesheets. I love that. Yeah, timesheets. No, they didn't have that. But yeah, it's like I when I read it yesterday, they did not. I couldn't find the names. So let's see, reps.
But why did they return? What's happening here?
That is a really good question.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, they returned because they have to eventually return because next year is election year and they need to campaign. They need to run around Texas. I was talking to Glenn Smith on Thorne Dryer's show, The Rag Radio, on Wednesday, and I asked Glenn point blank, you know, are they coming back? The voting restriction law is going to get passed? And he said, yeah, categorically, they have to come back. And then the next day they did. We were talking on Wednesday and Thursday quorum.
Wow.
So I think Texas will pass its voter restriction law. And by the way, just barely. Apparently Texas isn't really good with math, but one guy resigned from the House, and so now quorum can be made at 99 people instead of 100. And that's exactly what the Democrats had when they came back on Thursday, was they brought it to 99. So it was the exact number.
Okay,
so it was
one of them stay behind. I don't get this.
Yeah.
I don't know either. One of them. Okay, so
What were they
it was
thinking?
Jessica Gonzalez and Julie Johnson who broke quorum and left DC. Says doesn't say where they went, but they got Portugal. Well, why not? Cancun, Portugal, whatever. Can you believe that shit? No.
So did they not have a plan when they left?
I mean, it wasn't sustainable because the governor can just keep calling 30-day special sessions. And, you know, eventually they have to come back to Texas because they have to run for re-election. And so I think they decided, I'm going to bite the bullet now.
They could have switched out. Like, I've been out for 2 years. Now it's your turn.
Well, the Biden administration, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer have all promised that they're going to get through the legislation that will require states like Texas to check in to make sure that they're not doing voter suppression. And I think that's part of it. They were like, okay, we did our part. We went to DC.
Yeah.
We pushed for this. We've been promised we're going to get it. Joe Manchin has hinted that he's willing to do something. And so we'll see. But
trust him.
I mean, I don't think there's a high probability of it going through. What I think is fascinating is we're now in Texas where we were in the 1960s, before the Voting Rights Act. I mean, we are it is 1963, because I want it before the Civil Rights Act as well, because in terms of race, in terms of equality, we've lost everything that was achieved.
Yeah.
And we're starting from zero.
Aren't we more segregated now than
Yeah.
we've ever been?
We're just as segregated as we've ever been. Our schools
Yeah.
are fully segregated. Our radio stations are segregated. Our churches, our neighborhoods.
And now Dan Patrick, not like this is anything new, but he came out and said that the reason that Texas is so red with COVID is because of unvaccinated Black people.
Wow.
That those are the people who are spreading it. The people who make up 13% of this fucking state.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, are the most, they're more vaccinated than we are. White people are the ones who are least vaccinated in Texas. And when I listened to fucking what's his dick, Dan Patrick, I listened to him like 4 times. I rewound and listened, because what he said was, what Democrats fail to understand, that in every state, Blacks make up a significant portion. And then he just went off and from there made the leap to that's why Texas is having, he didn't say Texas, he said many big states. He didn't mention Texas at all, but he made the leap and said, that's why the Democrats, he said, need to get their people together to get vaccinated. And I was like, aren't you everyone's fucking representative? Have I missed something here?
Yeah, and when you consider the fact that most of the people who are getting vaccinated are the MAGA people who are
yeah.
shithead. And then, but okay, so here's the other thing that reminds me of is in 2016, when the Democrats lost to Trump, I cannot tell you how many white liberals I heard say it's the fault of Black voters. Mm-hmm. And so that it's really interesting to me that both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party find it convenient to scapegoat Black people for all the problems. Mm-hmm. And my argument was, so you're mad at 13.5% of the population that turned out and voted at a rate of 95% for the Democratic Party, when 60% of white people voted for Trump. Like, no, the only people you should be mad at right now are white people.
Yeah, we saw something similar too with the last presidential election, when there was the wave of Latino voters that we had hyper focused on that had switched over and voting red. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All the coverage was on them, not on the college educated white folks who were voting for Trump, not on anyone.
I know. I still don't understand those people. I mean, at least my mother doesn't watch this, but at least she's, like as just said, that she's feels betrayed and she's moved to that side at least. And but I never understood why he was so attractive to her as a candidate, because, he goes against everything she ever taught me. She appreciates art. You know what I mean? That doesn't really jibe with Trump. So I don't understand what spoke to these women, these older white women. What speaks to them? They fought for equal rights.
It's about race.
And I mean, I think the Census Bureau's data that's just been released kind of shows where some of this angst amongst white people is coming from. So 52% of college educated white women, the population of white women least likely to vote for Republicans, 52% voted for Trump. Yeah. And so something was happening that Trump was, and Trump started his campaign by saying the most racist thing he could about Mexicans, right? They're rapists and drug dealers, and some of them must be good. And
getting warmed up.
And that's exactly what he did. He signaled, this wasn't a dog whistle. This was just a whistle. He signaled very loudly to the whole planet, I'm the racist candidate. Vote for me, and I'm going to put brown and Black people back in their place. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason is because we are in the midst of what has to be the most rapid demographic transformation of an empire in human history.
Yeah.
The number of white people, not just the percentage, right? The percentage of white people in the United States has been dropping by 0.4% for about 50 years. But the number of white people for the first time in US history came in lower than it was in the previous census. Mm-hmm. And it was by 19 million.
There's a
which is
problem with this though.
gigantic.
The way the census is tracking these is that they're considering if you're mixed race, white and Asian, for example, white and black, for example, or whatever, you're only counted as that minority category.
Yeah. One drop.
Right? So there's
One drop.
yeah, it looks a little bit more significant if you count it the way the census is counting it, but there's tons of these sort of mixed population that is growing as well.
So 9% of white people do mixed marriages. They are the white people are the least likely race to do mixed marriages because they like to make everything Arkansas. But 9% of 60% is 5.4. So, you know, it definitely does point to where some of the drop happened, and that is our racist categorization of race in the United States, right? The Census Bureau's definitions of race are racist. But nonetheless, it also points to the negative birth rate. White people just aren't making babies, and they are not replacing themselves. So the irony of the Charlotte protesters saying, Charlottesville protesters saying, you will not replace us. It's like, no, dude, you will be replaced because you're not making babies. Like math doesn't, this is about math at this point. There's no room for ideology here. And so
I think it's nature. Nature's tired of white people, and they're just like, and you know, no, make the white people stop procreating, please. They're ruining everything. And I mean, I honestly think it's a good thing that we're having less children with what we're doing.
For just a second, it isn't necessarily because of white folks' DNA that all of this is happening.
I know, I'm just kidding.
I just want to be clear about it though.
Yeah.
It's about a cultural way of being.
Yep.
Yeah, so nature, excuse me, nature, yeah, I totally buy that nature is tired of, but it's not of necessarily white people. It's tired of
being raped every day. I mean, really,
it's capitalist culture. It's capitalist culture. It's neoliberal culture. It's the way that we run our workplaces. It's the way that we run the family. It's all of it.
I mean, our culture is filled with paranoid anger. Like we become a bunch of isolated people who are no longer engaged in community. We're hidden behind our 6 foot tall privacy fences. Well, I don't know why. Like, what is it in your yard that you need to hide from your neighbors?
We're also paternalistic. We're also perfectionist. We're also my way or the highway. We're also, I mean, so many things that's all tied into how we operate within capitalism. That's become just generally our way of being around everything, even when we're dealing with nature.
And on top of it all, we pretend that we are about achievement. Like if you have the right degree or if you have the right work experience, we'll hire you. And the reality is not. It's all about white privilege. And I think at some level, white people know that they got that job, even if it's subconsciously, not because they were the best qualified, but because of their race. And
they'll flip that shit around and say you're you got that job because you're not qualified, but you're black. That's where I mean,
Obama was elected because he was black.
Exactly.
Alternate universe do you live in?
I just, people have lost their fucking minds. Honestly.
A conversation with somebody yesterday who is taking extension courses at Harvard. And he has a job, you know, he has a bachelor's degree and he wants to go to grad school. He wants to do writing. He's a white dude, darling human being, really lovable, wonderful guy. And so we're having this conversation because he's picking our brain about what to do for grad school and all of the stuff. And he says, you know, it's important for me to go to Harvard. And I'm like, I get it. So which graduate school to go to, the topic comes to, well, I don't think I can get in, but it's really important for me to go to a good school, like go to Ivy League. And I'm sitting, I said, you know, I taught at an Ivy League. I gotta tell you, and I wanted to tell him all the things that I knew about the difference between teaching at Ivy League and not teaching, and teaching somewhere like a liberal arts college. And one with a good reputation. And I caught myself and I just went silent because it doesn't matter. He's not even going to believe me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he believe you?
Because
I would believe you.
The aura is so strong, you can't
I mean,
break through it. Oh.
how could you not believe
it
something
isn't
that
just
someone's
that.
telling you?
First of
Even
all,
if you-
it's
even
coming
if
out
you-
of my mouth. I'm a woman, and then I'm a woman of color. And because the thing I was going to say was this, maybe I should add that. I was going to say I had a bunch of, many different kinds of students while I was at Middlebury. My best students were not, surprise, surprise, the son of Chase Manhattan CEOs. That was not my best student, or my best student wasn't the,
And you were teaching math, right?
No, I was teaching.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yes. So that wasn't, my best students were my students of color who had gotten in the major, or my international students. They worked the hardest. They had the best insights. They actually cared about being there.
They were paying for it.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
everybody
the point
else's
I was trying to
parents were
make
paying
was
for it.
I don't see a difference in education between those two places
Right.
that I have taught. Because he was
Yeah.
like, it's got to be better quality. I'm like, I don't see it.
That's just another one of the lies that the United
Again,
States is
a
built
myth.
on.
The myth that,
I mean, yes, they attract really, really good instructors. Like I would love to go somewhere where Cornell West spoke, or took over a
Well,
class.
Who was
don't think
fired?
so.
may I interject again? That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I totally get that. I do.
One of the
They
reasons
they might attract all of the good instructors. The ones they keep, that's a whole nother story.
That's
also,
another
it's worth
story.
pointing out that they won't hire you unless you have an Ivy League education. So there's sort of like academic incest going on, because here are all these privileged people who don't have talent, who are there, who then graduate and then become the professors for the next generation. And so there's this feedback loop of, so I'll just out an event that happened to me. I actually interviewed at Yale and Princeton, and in both cases, one of the people that I interviewed with was a young professor, and I asked point blank, I said, "You're so young. How are you a professor here already? Like, how are you a tenure track?" They weren't tenured, but like they were a tenure track, and both of them said, "Well, my dad taught here." Okay.
How come you're president, George W?
So it's like nobility, right? It's inherited and
yeah.
passed down from generation to generation.
So we get more caste system, more class.
But we have this illusion. We still have this illusion that it's still meritocratic, that none of this is happening, that sort of thing happens not here, but in the shithole countries like Afghanistan. That's where we have, what is it called? All the articles that I'm seeing about Afghanistan and why it failed mention paternalism and these sort of systems of patrimony as the cause for why, we can't have good governance.
Yeah.
Yes, cronyism, corruption, patrimony, these networks or whatever. This is the reason why we can't have a functioning state in places like this. And so, yeah, when we have this veil of meritocracy here, or whatever, this illusion of meritocracy here, it allows us to say that stuff doesn't take place here. It takes place way over there.
Which then explains why our power grid almost completely collapsed in a mild winter storm, and why we have not had a reaction to COVID, because patriarchy, cronyism, because that's all here. Yeah. We're so corrupt. We're corrupt to our core.
So Susie, this person would not believe me, because it's the case of the sour grapes, right? It's the case of, oh, well, she didn't end up at this place. So, and this is one of the reasons why we never have a leg to stand on. And the ones that the person of color who ends up being a professor at these places.
Yeah,
I mean, it's Cornell West is sour grapes. Like,
yeah.
how do we even have yeah.
Yeah, I also want to say that in the past like 5, 10 years, there's been some sort of shift. The professors, the intellectuals who have the most impact, who are doing the most interesting thing that is changing the national culture or whatever. They're not the folks coming from these Ivy League institutions. Something strange is happening. They're the folks who have rebelled, gone into their own spaces, and they're sort of creating their own little institutions, doing their own thing with a lot more autonomy than they maybe had in these other academic spaces that they come from. But yeah, the people who are changing the culture are not the people who are published by Stanford University Press anymore or U Chicago Press. Something strange is afoot.
Yeah.
And then on that note, let's do the update on COVID.
Yeah.
And Texas.
Okay, let's do it.
So there has been a full-fledged rebellion in Texas. We've talked about it a little bit on the show, but I think we should go in a little deeper. Counties and cities and several of the school districts have gone ahead and enforced a mask mandate. The original court that heard it put a stay on Governor Abbott's restriction on mask mandates. And then the Supreme Court last Sunday came in and said, we're putting a stay on
The stay.
San Antonio and Dallas so that they can't enforce their mask mandate until the court that had actually originally done the stay on Governor Abbott's mandate rehears the case, which they did that Monday, and they put the stay back on Governor Abbott's mandate. And so the schools have in fact been able to enforce their mask mandate despite the Supreme Court's initial weirdness. And it does now look like the Supreme Court is going to allow, who knows, next week's another week, but it does now look like the Supreme Court is going to allow the mask mandates. And one of the reasons might be that several of the red parts of Texas have started to do mask mandates. Texas City has enforced the mask mandates. Paris ISD has done it in an interesting way. They found a loophole. And the loophole was the dress code. They simply put the mask mandate into the dress code.
Why not?
Why not?
It's
That's
the easiest thing.
brilliant.
Yeah, and this is a red district. I mean, this is not a blue liberal place. The Iran Sheffield ISD district has gone into quarantine, or I'm sorry, gone back on to online because after just 4 days or 3 days, I think is when they did it. Yeah, because I think it was Wednesday. After just 3 days of school, 26% of their faculty were in quarantine and 13% of their students were in quarantine.
It's just so fucking stupid. And these parents, I mean, I get it. I mean, no, I don't, because I don't have children, but I know what they are. And I don't need any.
Them.
I know of them and I know what they do. And so I understand wanting to get them out of your house and get them taught and socialized. I get all of that, but man, oh man, they're the ones starting to take up all the hospital beds. And for so long we've been saying, at least the kids aren't getting sick. Well, now they are.
Yeah.
And now what are you going to do? And what do these fucking people do? They go up to the teachers in one of the most prestigious fucking school districts we have. They overtax themselves so that they can have and lure good teachers. It is Austin. They've got their own ISD though. And it's Eanes ISD, also known as Westlake, who was a major competitor of ours when I was in high school. They had all the good stuff. They all had cars. They were super cool.
It's where the developers live.
So, yeah, it's where there's a lot of fucking money, and there's hills. There are hills in Austin for those of you who are not from here. It is there. We are in the hill country, and there's a lot of expensive land out there.
So for the record, Eanes is separate from Austin ISD because the rich people living in Westlake did not want to share their tax dollars with the poor people living in Austin. And so they made their own little district so that their own little privileged children could have $1 million gyms and gym equipment. And
So
Mhm.
what happened in this? What about Ains?
So I think we've mentioned before how people just have seem to have forgotten how to be around other people and, be civil. This parent just went off on this teacher because this teacher was wearing a mask and she didn't want her kids to have to wear it. And she didn't think the teacher should be modeling that. And she just reached across and ripped the mask off that teacher's face, off that adult woman's face. I would have, I would have punched her. I mean, just like, not like I'm going to think about it. I think I would have just actually, not even thinking, would have punched her. And I don't hit people, but don't reach for me like that. That would have scared the shit out of me. And at Eanes, the irony of the respectability of these fucking people,
another
please.
lie.
Yeah, you're just like the rest of us. You just have money. That's, anyway, I thought that was horrifying. And I think that when you start seeing that shit in those kinds of places, that we're in for a lot of trouble, where the backlash is going to be even worse with the few steps forward that we've made.
It's also worth pointing out that week one of going back to school, 10,000 people are in quarantine in Florida and 20,000 are in quarantine in Mississippi. So this is obviously a brilliant start. Here's one of the things that's killing me. So remember those pictures from India in April with all the cremation all over the news, and we were like horrified?
Yeah.
That was April. This is 4 months later. How is it we didn't know this was going to happen? Like, how deep up our asses is our heads that we can't figure out that what just happened in India 4 months ago is coming here? Holy shit. And then it hit Europe 2 months ago. So we've had the data coming in from Europe. Like, this is a surprise, proves the United States is a country of fucking morons.
Well, yes, I agree with that. I feel like this is exactly who we are.
Buck v. Bell, we need mass sterilization.
Okay. I'm already done. I've got mine.
Holy shit.
I'm ahead of the game on this one. I had a hysterectomy already. How did this happen?
How did this happen?
It's like watching a tornado coming closer and closer.
It destroyed my house after it destroyed an entire city in front of my eyes, and I still didn't know it was going to hit me.
I think we're unaware. I think we're still unaware of how dysfunctional our institutions are. I think people still have faith that ISDs will look at the data, will make rational decisions, will care for their kids. They still have faith in their neighbors and their elected officials. They still think that states are functioning rationally.
So then we have a governor banning mask mandates.
Well, but I've had people say to me, look, Greg Abbott, he got COVID. Now after this, now that he's gotten COVID, he will understand that it's real. He will make changes.
No, because he has no symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
He got Regeneron. He got the best drugs. We can't get that shit. Oh, and now they're talking about some new drug. I was going to look it up before we came on, but all these people are being hospitalized for taking this new drug that the Republicans are pushing, and it's a cow dewormer.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
The Republicans are now saying this cow dewormer will cure COVID.
And people are going to the fucking, they're going to the feed store to get it.
I think you guys should put chlorine in your veins like the president said. That's what I
Only
think.
if it's
Roy,
hydro.
maybe they're on the same agenda as you. We're going for mass sterilizations. Yep.
So here's the other thing.
Dip your stuff there.
What was it with the CDC and President Biden when they said, take your masks off? What was that, 3 months ago? Did you not see the pictures coming from India? What were they thinking? God damn it, Biden. You need to get up in front of the country and you need to say, I'm a dumbass, and so is the CDC. And I apologize for my stupidity because I just killed tens of thousands of you morons. Yeah, you don't have the sense to keep your mask on your face.
Mm-hmm. It's eroded my trust in the CDC, right? The CDC and the WHO have disagreed so many times during this pandemic. I can't trust the CDC. As soon as the CDC puts out a statement or something like this, I go to the WHO to verify and see what other people are saying.
All the people of all the organizations in this country, that would have been the one that I would have trusted the most.
And they dropped the ball on us.
Yeah.
For political reasons.
It was all politics, and fuck the people who are going to die, who are dying, children. infants, 5-year-olds
Oh, yeah.
dying from this. And I just recently read, I'm on blood thinners, so I have and this is a vascular virus, right? So it causes blood clots. And I just read that heparin, which is a major blood thinner, and they put it just directly into you. It's not a pill, and it's not breaking up the clots. And it's like the strongest thing we have to break up the clots.
Wow.
And it won't. People are still dying from blood clots. Do you guys remember the very first like famous person to get it was that dancer on Broadway? Do you guys remember that? Okay, so he had just gotten I guess his second Broadway show or something, and I think it was Hamilton. Don't quote me, but he got a blood clot in his leg because he got COVID, and they ended up having to cut his fucking leg off. And then no matter how much heparin they used, he still was throwing clots, and he died like 5 days later from a blood clot in his lung. I mean, it's terrifying. And now that the heparin can't even dissolve it, that's a big fucking problem. Because that will kill you. Like, I had a pulmonary embolism, and they hurt too. They really hurt.
And then to add to all of this, last year, this Stanford study said that only the first 20,000 deaths were unavoidable. All the other 600,000 are entirely on the United States government and the 50 states.
What does Hawaii look like? Okay, what worries you?
What worries me? What worries me right now is that when we who was I talking to about this? Folks were talking about this collapse in Afghanistan and what that must have felt like on the ground for people who live their day-to-day lives, who are farming, who have stores, who do these kinds of things. And in a place like Afghanistan, where you have so many other alternate institutions besides the state, where you have familial networks, where you have, village networks, all of this other stuff taking place aside from the state, collapse looks a lot different than it would here, right? So if something were to happen here, if we erode our trust in the CDC, in our state government to take care of us in the event of a power grid failure, of something else happening or whatever, what happens here? We don't have those same institutions.
We're going to shoot our way out.
Exactly. We have a bunch of guns and a bunch of individual houses that can't sustain themselves long term.
And a lot of anger.
Yeah, and a lot of anger.
And a lot of paranoia. The country of paranoid people.
So this is what worries me. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens now? I mean, it's so obviously divided. I mean, there are people. Trump got more votes last time than he did. I mean, my thinking was that he could win still, but that his base was not growing. And boy, was well, maybe it wasn't his base that was growing. I don't know, but somebody voted for him who didn't vote for him last time. And I'm wondering why. Do you think it was just a bunch of rednecks who normally don't vote?
I have literally been told by people that I have never wanted to vote until Trump. On that note, should we switch over and cover one last news item before we go,
yes.
Which is Alan West?
Yes. Oh, please, let's talk about Mr. West.
For the non-Texans, tell us who he is, why he matters.
So Alan West was the chair of the Republican Party in Texas. He resigned from that position, and then I want to say it was 2 days later. I know it was July 4th. He announced
he is a black man.
Yes, that is important to know.
It is important to know. He announced that he is going to run in the primaries against Abbott for the gubernatorial nomination for the Republican Party.
Because Abbott's not right enough.
And it's worth pointing out that in Texas, we vote for the entire executive. It's except for the Secretary of State. The entire executive is voted for by the people. And we do that in midterm election years so that we can make sure that voter turnout is low, right? Because if we did it in presidential election years, voter turnout is at its highest. So I'm actually shocked we don't do what Virginia does and do those elections on odd numbered years. But in any case, we are facing, the possibility of a really interesting midterm election this coming midterm for us in Texas, because this is the purplest we've been in 18 years. Longer. 20 years.
Do you think Beto's going to run? I think he has to.
I think he's the only really viable candidate the Democrats have, unless McConaughey jumps in there. And
McConaughey would win. I think he would win hands down. And he's not stupid. I mean, he has a master's from UT. I don't know what it's in, but he's not a moron. I think anything would be better than Greg Abbott.
Yeah.
Honestly, Clint Eastwood would be better than fucking Greg Abbott.
No, I don't know about that. I just don't know about that one.
You just put him in a room with a chair and tell him something.
Yeah.
Well, it was.
So what happened? Can you tell us what happened?
So,
yeah.
So Alan West is definitely going to give Abbott a run for his money. I mean, there are actually, I think there's now 6 people, but you can just write off the other 4 of the other people, because I don't think they're in this. I think it's between West and Abbott at this point.
A roll for his money.
And was it yesterday? Oh, so this is the wrong one. I'm pulling.
I think he said yesterday.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was this morning. I don't know.
Alan West's wife was arrested after leaving a restaurant and hit with a DWI. And part of her charge was a DWI while driving with a child under the age of 15.
And it was how old? How was the child?
3 months old.
Grandson.
And it was a grandson. And it seems very likely, very plausible that she actually had no alcohol, and that this was just simply a political attack to try and help Abbott get reelected. It's also really interesting that they then left the 3-month-old baby on the side of the road with the police officer while they hauled the grandmother off too. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And no, you're right.
Said in response, I support the thin blue line, but this is insidious. They put my grandson at risk, at jeopardy, left him with a couple of police officers and carted his grandmother to jail. And she had water and lemonade. I'm beyond livid.
And honestly, I believe him that she had water and lemonade.
I do
have
too,
receipt.
completely.
They pulled up the receipt from her time at the restaurant. It was only lemonade and water. And then they also have videos or whatever, only lemonade and water.
Yeah, and the officer said...
Oh, she also had field sobriety tests. She had field sobriety tests, took the breathalyzer, did the other thing. She refused a blood test, but they got a warrant for the blood test, and they're not issuing any comments. So I wonder what happened.
And despite all of that, the officer said we had reason to believe the driver may be intoxicated.
She's 100. She's probably just old driving, I mean, honestly, you just pull her over for being old, but she's not drunk. She's not drunk.
For those of you not familiar with Texas, this is politics Texas style. We
pew 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 pew. We shoot first and ask questions later, which is why we're in such a shit state right now. Okay, does anyone else have anything else they'd like to say before we wrap her up?
Wear a mask.
Oh God.
Please wear a mask. Oh God, please. And if you can, get your booster. I mean, if they have boosters every 8 months for this, I'm going to get a booster every 8 months.
Yeah.
That's just, if that's the way we do this, then that's the way we do this.
Who was it that commented on the booster saying it's like giving additional life jackets to those who are already on the lifeboats rather than passing them out to the rest of the world?
Right. So I'm okay with us doing boosters after we vaccinate the rest of the planet. Because if the rest of the planet still has COVID, we're going to have more variants in the future. We're on a ship. Our ship is sinking. It's just one ship. There's not a United States ship. There's not an India ship. There's just an Earth ship.
That's right.
Yeah. And
I feel like 2012.
I'm gonna take care of my community first mentality is how we go extinct.
We're not going to get that, Roy, until the aliens are at the gates.
Yeah. Which is what every movie shows us.
Even then, yeah.
We're so dumb, we need an alien invasion to fix us.
Don't look at it or make a noise. What are those movies? The Bird Box, where you're not supposed to see anything.
Even in
And
those
then there's
movies,
that other
the
one. You have to be-
bunkers are filled with the billionaires and the what, and now we're having trillionaires. This is
Yeah. Well, I hope my final thought for today is that I hope Rudy Giuliani ends up arrested and put in prison, or at least in jail for holding before he can make bail.
All right, that's your wish. My wish is
Don't say something nice, because then I'm just
God
gonna look
He's
like
gonna
an
say something
asshole.
sweet and
Something
caring and
goddamn
wonderful.
positive. I can't. Okay, I'm not. I can't think of anything. Is that too nice?
All right,
Yeah.
Dr. Casagrande, what do you got? Parting words.
My mom always used to say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't
Oh
say
my,
it.
yeah, after 45.
Well, now Olympia
Okay, I want
Dukakis
40%
said,
of the US arrested. How about that?
okay, I'm good with that. I can help
For
you with that.
endangering everybody's life. Criminal moronic endangerment.
I think we should. I mean, people are being sued. Congress people are being sued, and the Capitol is representatives are suing people for the January 6th stuff. So let's see what happens. I hope they win some. What about you,
United
Ramesh?
States. And then nobody's going to look. One of the insurrectionists got 8 months. 8 months, that's all. You could
But
literally have an
who?
insurrection once a year and still have 4 months of freedom.
I figured out what I wanted. After Ramesh, go.
You want to know who shot Ashley Babbitt?
I want firing squads. That's my wish. What happened to good old-fashioned treason firing squads?
All right, Ramesh, you got to stay in the moment here.
Before Roy
Yeah,
takes off again. Hurry.
If you are a doomsday prepper, get to know your neighbors. You are not going to make it far without them.
Very nice. Very nice. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for being.
Wait. I thought of
Oh.
something, Susie. So
I like things. I like things.
I want an international body, and unfortunately, the only thing we have is the UN. So a not so ineffectual or international body to make it mandatory to get COVID vaccines across the globe. And
that's like
ramp up
New World Order
and
stuff.
make it no, we have come very close to doing something like this. We need to do it.
Yeah, we've
I
done
don't
it for other
disagree
reasons.
with
it.
you. I do not disagree with you.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
don't. But I just don't, you're not going to get America on board with that.
We won't even do the International War Crimes Tribunal.
I can't wait till they can't get on planes. I can't wait till they can't go to Applebee's or wherever the fuck it is they go for their, dinner, whatever, because they have to wear masks. They're gonna have Karen fits and breakdowns.
They're not though. Here's the thing that happened in for example, what was it? Houston Methodist had, I think, 45% of nurses saying they were anti-maskers. They were going to quit if there was a requirement, anti-vaccine, all of this stuff. Among nurses, there's a very high percentage of nurses who are very strongly anti all the science. It's surprising.
It is. It's
the
weird.
hospital threatened
As
to
my
put.
son says, is it really?
The hospital said that they were going to put in a policy, you have to be vaccinated in order to continue to have your job. Other hospitals threatened the same policy, lots of worker outcry, backlash, all of this. Other hospitals backed down. Houston Methodist came up. You had a few hundred folks quit. The vast majority got their vaccine, are continuing to show up to work. All of this is still happening. So I think you're right, Susie. If these enforcement mechanisms are in place, people will change their tune pretty quickly.
Yeah, they're gonna have to go through. I think what their plan is that if you are vaccinated, you show your passport, which Ted Cruz is trying to get to ban. He's gonna ban these fucking vaccine passports. Like, what? Am I gonna get arrested for having it? And so those of us who are vaccinated can, show our card and proceed along or whatever. But those who aren't either will not be allowed in at all, or will have to go through a testing process that includes like the swab up the nose and all that kind of shit, and temperature taking. It'll be a whole different line for them if they're allowed in.
So
And
I'm wondering, what is Europe doing?
Mine?
No, Europe.
What is Europe doing? What is Italy
Oh,
doing?
they go into lockdown constantly. I mean, they do lockdown.
As far as
and
mandating vaccination, what are they doing?
Oh, you know what? I don't know that.
Yeah, we
I
got to
don't
figure
think they're
this
They're
having
out.
the
working
kind of
on it.
resistance we are.
Yeah, they're working on
Yeah.
vaccine passports, right? Like digital
Yeah,
passes and
that's
things
what
like that.
I
Yeah.
heard from the very beginning. Is that
Because they're not
process is-
idiots.
So here's
They've
what's going to
seen
happen
this
if we
before.
do vaccine passports. We're going to become an even more divided society because Karen and Bubba will move into the country where the
Mhm.
restaurants aren't going to require masks, where the hospitals aren't going to require masks, and they'll just hang out with their but then that way that'll protect the blue parts of the country where people will be wearing masks from the red part that is.
That's also so frightening to me, right? Already I
I wonder.
feel the politicization of masks when I'm in like a rural area versus when
Me
I'm in the city or whatever,
too.
right? I feel the stares in a particular kind of way if I have
Oh
them
yeah.
on.
It's hard to
Um,
travel, go on a road trip because once you're in the
Absolutely.
country, people are like, "Oh, you're wearing a mask. I hate you."
What are you, some kind of one of those queer liberals? Yeah. Silent majority. Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was in Arkansas and Trump was running, and there was a sign in the door that said, "We are the silent majority." And I was like, that's not silent.
Thank you, Nixon.
All right.
Dumbass.
Yeah.
It was great to see everybody once again. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next week with even more of our really cool topics of conversation. And again, we got some stuff coming up that's going to be really cool that we'll announce soon. So thanks, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Yay.